Hi, Andrea and Mike. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Hoping that you can start off by giving a short opening statement about why voters should choose you to be their representative for Congressional District 6. Mike, how about if you go first?
Sure. Um, Thank you guys for changing the schedule a little bit. I appreciate it. I think we're going to be originally on at noon, so thank you for your flexibility. So first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I've been a long time subscriber to the Oregonian, probably 30 years. I don't get my paper all the time, but I've been a subscriber nonstop. If you look up my history, I've been a long time subscriber, whether I agree with some of the things or not, but I've been never canceled my subscription with you guys over many, many years. So I'm one of your loyal subscribers, first of all. So, but I'm a common sense businessman, a family man with a wife and two kids. And I jumped in this race for one reason. I just think our country is really heading in the wrong direction on a lot of fronts. And I'm a lot of my employees and friends and family, it was one of the hardest things I've really had to do is to tell my employees I'm going to be stepping away from my business for a while, which we've had a real successful business over the years, helping people with supply chain, companies like Starbucks and Under Armour and John Deere and a lot of big corporations. And we're busier now than ever. And in fact, we've hired a lot of people. We've expanded into Europe. We're in the Netherlands now. We got staff in Canada and Toronto. We're a U.S. company that was headquartered here in Tigard, Oregon. And we have offices throughout the U.S., Boston, New York, and people, Denver, all over. But we're supply chain consultants, and we help some of the larger corporations and smaller companies as well help solve their challenges that they're dealing with day-to-day supply chain problems, rising supply chain costs, and the capacity issues and shortages and delays. It's a big issue that's affecting America and our businesses across the board. And I think that experience that I have for the last 30 years helping some of the larger companies or navigate those challenges badly needed in Congress. But I'm running really to get a few of our problems resolved here. I'm not I don't have a personal political agenda. I've never held public office. I ran about 15 years ago for Congress against Kurt Schrader, and I haven't ran since. But I'm just really fed up with where the country's going, the lawlessness, and having a dad as a policeman for 30 years and watching how the police officers are being treated by this people in the state and country. But I was Air Force before that for 8 years, and I've always been taught to respect law enforcement and our military, and I just think we've lost that in our country. And I, as a member of Congress, want to go back and bring that respect and support and fund the police mentality back to Washington, D.C. I want to go back and be a problem solver like I do in my business. I mean, every day here, I'm dealing with problems as a businessman, not just an advisor to other companies, but we see challenges every day in my own business here. Rising healthcare costs, rising labor costs. You got a lot of issues here you have to deal with. We have pension plans we manage for our employees. And so I deal with that every day. I'm also dealing with other companies' supply chain problems and helping them out. And I truly think that's what's needed in Congress is that problem solving mindset. Like I said earlier, I don't have a political agenda. I'm really going back there for the right reasons. And that is to really try to tackle the problems that are facing this country. Higher inflation, higher gas prices, the economy that's crippling America right now. We got a borderless, a lawless. It's really the southern border needs addressing. We need real immigration reform, and we need to get our crime and rampant problems like that under control. Those are the things I'm going to work on immediately in Congress and do a good job. And so I hope to get your support and your endorsement and be the next member of Congress representing Oregon.
Great, thank you. Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about why voters should choose you?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to all of you for being here today and inviting us to come and have this conversation. So I am a state representative, and I've been serving in the legislature since 2017. And I'm running for Congress because I truly believe that change is possible in a single generation for those individuals and families who feel like they're not getting ahead right now. And I know that change can happen because it's happened for me and my family. When my dad came to the U.S. From Mexico when he was 5 years old and picked cotton and tomatoes in the Rio Grande Valley, he had dreams of making his way out of poverty. And he really taught me the value of hard work. So I went on to become the first person in my family to graduate from college. And so I am now fighting for a better future for my 17-year-old daughter, Amelia, for her generation and for those who come after. But I realize that families are struggling right now. And in the United States, gaps in policies have made it so that working families have to make really hard choices. A lack of federal paid family and medical leave means that new parents have to make hard choices when it comes to providing for their growing family, bringing home a newborn child, or caring for maybe an elderly sick loved one, and trying to figure out if they're going to be able to make ends meet that month. A $7.25 minimum wage means people can work a full-time job and really not be able to keep a roof over their head. And every day that the federal government fails to combat our climate crisis really places marginalized communities and businesses at risk of greater health risks and risks of insolvency. So since joining the Oregon House in 2017, I have been a champion for working families, fighting for and winning protections for women janitors who are actually being abused by their employers, passing some of the nation's most transparent drug pricing laws, so families don't have to choose between food and prescription drugs, along with laws curbing carbon pollution and phasing out dirty coal and setting us on a path to a clean energy future. And really, and I've worked on this since 2017, ensuring the strongest reproductive rights law in the country. So I want to take all of this work and more to our nation's capital. It's the work that I've been doing over the course of my entire career at the federal level as well as the state level to really make sure that I can help even that playing field and create that future where every person knows that they have the same opportunity to succeed as their neighbor. So this is why I'm running for Congress, and I'm excited to be the next member from the 6th Congressional District. So thank you again.
Great, thanks so much. Let's start with you on this question, Andrea. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that Biden's student loan forgiveness program will cost $420 billion over 10 years. Do you believe that, first of all, Biden's administration has the authority to do this, but also would you support this plan?
So I know what the high cost of education looks like. And I know how students and non-traditional students, it's not just young students, are really struggling to make sure that they get that education. And like I said, it took me 7 years to get my education way back when, and it was a lot cheaper back then because I had to pay for it myself. And, and I had to figure out, and I didn't get any loans. I didn't take out, I didn't go into debt for it, but it's even harder today. And so I understand what young people and non-traditional students are going through, and a lot of times people do have children and have families, and things have gotten worse since then. Economists have shown that canceling student debt, as President Biden's suggesting, frees up hundreds of thousands of young people to buy homes, start families, and start businesses. So this actually is not, it's actually a win for Oregonians, but it's also a win for our economy. And it is a win for these individuals and families who are really trying to get ahead and make a start in their lives. And
do you believe the president has the authority to do this rather than having Congress pass this kind of forgiveness program?
I think Congress needs to step in and make the legislative and statutory changes.
Okay. And finally, you're talking about the high cost of education. How would this do anything to change the cost of education going forward? It certainly helps those who would have their loans forgiven, but it doesn't do anything to change tuition, does it?
It doesn't. And that's something where I think Congress has dropped the ball. We haven't really addressed this. And so this is something that, I've been hearing about as a state legislator, and, we've been trying to infuse dollars and, trying to figure out how we balance the various needs across the state, because it's not just higher ed, it's K-12 as well. But, I do think lifting the crushing burden of debt off an entire generation of future innovators, entrepreneurs, small businesses will free them up to become the next generation of people who are contributing to our economy. So and to start families and start those businesses. And I think it'll pay dividends to all of us in the long run.
Thank you. Mike, same question for you regarding the cost of the student loan forgiveness program. Do you, first of all, think that Biden has the authority to do this? And secondly, do you agree with the plan?
No, I don't believe Biden had the authority personally. I think, and I'm not 100% expert in that, but I really believe that should have been an act of Congress, and Congress should have decided that. I don't think that Biden should just do an executive order and just do that arbitrarily. I just think that was more of a political move than anything. And I think that even though the intent may have been to do some things good for the people that need it, I know that was one of those campaign pledges, but I myself, I worked at 2 jobs, a dishwasher, worked at Tiger Fred Meyer. I paid my way through school too. I mean, I was the first in my family to go to school. And I asked my dad, hey, Dad, I'd like to go to college. And my dad looked at me and says, you know, I'm a policeman. I make about $28,000 a year, son. And I can barely, you know, we're pretty tight. We had to work paper boy and, you know, do things to make ends meet on the side for us kids if we wanted to do something. And so when I said I wanted to go to college, he says, well, you sort of put in that no man's land where you don't qualify for certain Pell Grants and things like that because I make too much money. Back then, 28,000 was a lot of money for a blue collar family. So my dad said, you have to get a couple jobs. I had to sit out between high school and college, and I worked literally washing dishes, Tiger Fred Meyer. I worked at for a long time at Fred Meyer. I was a union member there, local 555. And so I earned my way through school. I got my degree, got my business degree. And no one ever, you know, no one's came back to me and said, hey, why didn't you get a student loan? I would have repaid it. I would have loved to have that happen. There are too many people in America that aren't getting this benefit here. People that went to trade schools, people went to get their plumbing degree or a plumbing trade or electrical or would become a chef. I mean, are they giving up their loans or whatever? No. It's unfair to a lot of people in this country. I'm hearing a lot of disgruntled people saying, why are they just stuck in this group for this period of time? That should have been thought through a little bit more. I think that's where Congress should have got involved, and that Biden just made this decision arbitrarily. I think it should have been handled differently. The intent may have been good to give some relief to some of these people, especially with COVID and so forth. There's a whole group of people out there, like myself and others, that didn't get this benefit. So really, and those people that have got those degrees are some of the highest paid people in our state and our country. There are a lot of people that didn't go to college, and they're telling me on the street, why didn't you just give me $10,000 right now, pay off my debt from my credit card debt? I didn't go to college. It's unfair that they're giving $10,000 to all these people in college, yet I didn't get that. So I think there's a lot of unfairness in the program. And I think it's when you hear the arguments from what people are telling me in the street out here, I agree with them. I think this was hastily done. I think it was a political event, and it should have been done by Congress.
Thank you. So Senator Graham has introduced a bill that would ban abortions after 15 weeks. Is that something that you in the House of Representatives would support? And this question goes to Mike.
I'm a common sense person when it comes to abortion here. You know, I'm a states' right advocates, and I think what he's saying on a federal level, I don't agree with. I like the Supreme Court's decision that it should be a state's decision. So what he's saying is make it a federal decision, which the Supreme Court's already ruled. So I disagree with him on that. I think that, you know, when I say common sense, that means whether a mother's life's in danger or there's rape or incest or other things should be considered.
And so you would definitely leave it to the states. You would fight against.
I think what he's proposing is putting it back on the federal level, and I disagree with him.
So you would vote against that if that came up?
Yes, because I think it should be back at the state level.
And a ban of any sort, for instance, like after 26 weeks.
I just answered the question.
So you would uphold Oregon's and the individual states' rights regardless of what the legislation was.
The Oregon Constitution's in place. I'm not running for office in Congress to change the Constitution here in Oregon. The Constitution's been set by the voters and the people they elected, so it is in place. And I think that's you honor the Constitution when you get elected.
Mike, I wanted to follow up on that. There are a couple particularly notable episodes in your past that call into question your credibility. In 2000, you drove a girlfriend to an abortion clinic and gave her $300. And while you criticized your opponent for not being tough on crime, you benefited from a diversion program to erase a drug driving conviction from your record. How do you respond to views that you believe in one standard for yourself and a different one for others?
Well, I'm glad you're believing what you've seen on TV, because what Salinas put on TV is a lot of fictitious stuff for one. If you
the Oregonian reported these stories back at the time.
But if you read the Oregonian, back when Jimmy Harr and 23 years ago, whatever it was, that this incident happened here, in the Oregonian, they actually quote talked to the lady, and she said, Mike never asked me to get an abortion, never encouraged me to get an abortion. It's in your paper. So what's
So
what's
are you
raised
saying that
flag
you
on-
did not drive her to the clinic and then provide her with
I
$300?
dropped her up at a medical clinic by Lloyd Center, and she didn't say she was getting an abortion. So it was real clear to me. I helped her out because it was a girl I was dating. You said girlfriend, it was a girl I was dating. And she was living with her boyfriend. We covered all that in the past. And they had a child together, and I think they were breaking up or something and wanted some help. I helped this person out, period. I feel bad for what's happened to her in the situation, all the TV and the press. But what my opponent's putting on TV is not what you guys, the Oregonian, reported. You put in there, it says, after you interviewed her, Mike never asked me, I never encouraged me. If you pull that up, it's completely different than what that Andrea Salinas is putting on TV, and her the Democrats are saying Mike completely encouraged you. It's not true. Look, read your own paper. So that's all I'm going to say about it. But on the other part of it here, I've made one mistake in my life when it comes to a bad decision when it comes to law. All of us have never been perfect. Like me, like many other people, we've all made mistakes in my life. I was at a wedding and I literally thought I was fine. I was 0.12 when all said and done. I thought it was fine. You know, it was my brother-in-law's wedding, and some of the groomsmen had drinking too much, and I thought it was fine. I'm a pretty big guy, and I had a couple of beers, and I thought it was fine. I didn't want them driving. We were out in the middle of nowhere in Hood River. There's no Uber. This is like going back 7 years ago. Uber really wasn't even around. So there really was no taxis out there. So I drove people back in the Hood River, dropped them off. It was at the house we're all staying at there. Parked the car. The police car said, "Hey, you didn't turn your blinker on." And so I walked up and talked to him. Everybody's in the house. We already parked. And so I went out there and, talked to him and said, "Well, you smell like alcohol." I told him I had some drinks at the wedding. And so then I did the sobriety test like he asked, and I walked too many steps. Steps up at 9, I stopped at 12. And, and I was nice to him. Unfortunately, some of the, things happened. And I go, let's go. I think I'm sober. So I go, let's go do a breathalyzer test. So we did it. I got 0.12. So I made a mistake. And I went through diversion, did all the classes, did everything. It's been dismissed. The judges dismissed it, said I did everything as required. That's the only thing in my life I've ever been charged for. So for people to put on TV, I've got a felony drug possession. Not true. Call the district attorney's office over in Hood River. In fact, she called Andrea Salinas' office just this week. That is completely false. You need to take it off. Called her campaign and says, "I'm the district attorney in Hood River. What you're saying on TV is not true. Mike's never been charged with any charge at all related to drugs. No drug felony possession. Our lawyers have been talking to him. We have all the documentation. Andrea Salinas did not do her fact checking. She put stuff on TV that she may have thought was accurate. There may have been some note that someone could have charged me for, and when you get, first of all, I don't know if you know this works. If you've never had a crime against you ever in your life, which I never have, that's the first day of my life and ever my instant law. And I'm sure many of you have had some mistakes or things like that too. Well, we all need to learn from those so you become better people. Well, the fact that you would get a misdemeanor, first of all. If that's your first offense, and say it was my wife's oxycodone pill. She had surgery, a few weeks earlier. She asked me, she goes, "I don't want to carry a purse. Will you carry, I want to carry about her lipstick or some makeup." She says, "Will you carry one of my prescription pills from the doctor?" We have a prescription with her name on it from the doctor. I said, "You want the whole pill?" I go, "I don't want to carry a whole pill, so I'll just take one." So I just put my wallet in my coat here. I carried that with me at the wedding. When we were leaving, I was the one driving, got pulled over. When I went to the police station, it was the lipstick, the makeup counter, and her pill. The police officer says, "Do you have a prescription for the oxycodone pill?" I said, "No, I don't. It's my wife's. I can get it for you." They said, "If you can prove that, we will drop this." There was a note in our file. Andrea Salinas saw that, and someone says, "If you don't have that, you can be charged like a felony." Well, someone wrote felony by mistake. We just found that out. You cannot be charged a felony. You can only be charged a misdemeanor for your first offense ever for one oxycodone pill. So what Andrea Salinas is putting on TV is 100% not true. It's the most damaging, factless argument on TV, blasting me on TV, making me look bad. I go to my kids every day and I tell my kids, "Guys, I don't want you," I got a 7-year-old, 10-year-old, and I'm proud of them. I say, "Hey, did my dad's a policeman. Don't ever get involved in drugs. Don't ever touch drugs. I never even tried marijuana in my life. I've never tried an oxycodone. I've never tried any like cocaine ever in my life." And so I told my kids, I go, "Hey, don't ever do drugs." And now my kids are watching Andrea Salinas put on TV, "Oh, Mike Erickson's been convicted or charged with felony drug possession." And she has cocaine on TV. My kids come to me and said, "Dad, I thought you said you didn't do drugs." "I didn't, kids. What she's saying is a lie." This
So,
is really hurtful.
great, thank you.
So,
So,
I mean, question. You need to hear this because it was very accusatory that I did something wrong here. I didn't do anything wrong. I did one other
It's
thing.
actually not responding to the question that Laura asked directly, but I would like to move on. Andrea, was your campaign misleading? Do you think that it was inappropriate or inaccurate what your campaign put on the air?
So I needed to set the record straight. I was being accused of things that were not true. And the ad was based on a police report that was, written up 6 years ago. And we stated the charges that were in the police report in the ad. So it's all there. I think the way Mr. Erickson characterizes his behavior is very different than what you'll read in the police report. I think it said he was the police officer who wrote up the report, basically said he left, a bar. He did not leave a wedding. He left a bar. He was swerving. There were many other factors involved. So, and we did not put all of that in the ad. So there is a lot more to the police report. We just put the facts on the air to clarify some hypocrisy.
Right, but you put the accusations of a police report as opposed to what was eventually the end result. And is that, considering especially the work that you've done in the Oregon legislature regarding police reform and justice reform, do you think that that was an appropriate message to send to voters, just giving a partial police report allegations as opposed to kind of how it concluded?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people want to know when, somebody is touting their record as law and order and supporting, law enforcement and then not following law and order. So I think voters are done with hypocrisy, with politicians saying one thing and doing the other. We had years of that under the Trump administration. And I feel like, some of the extremists in Washington, D.C. right now still behave the same way. Do as I say, not as I do. And that's not acceptable to Oregon voters. They want to know that they're, the people that they send to represent them are consistent in their actions and their words.
So Andrea, and this question's for you. In the Oregon legislature, you supported or helped pass very progressive legislation. In terms of how Oregon compares with the rest of the country, Oregon is among the most progressive states. Do you think that is what Congress needs? I mean, are you going to Congress in order to push a progressive agenda, or how do you expect to, I guess, what are going to be the top priorities you have?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I know that Oregon families are really hurting right now. And I have always, I think it's something like 89–90% of the bills that we have passed in the Oregon legislature are bipartisan. And so this has never been about partisanship for me. It has never been about, scoring political points. It has always been about the people I'm serving and listening to their needs and trying to figure out how we move an agenda through government that helps serve those people. And so I will continue to work in a bipartisan fashion. I've always had an open door policy, regardless of, one's position. And of course, I would never ask one's political affiliation. Everyone is welcome to come and talk to me. I meet with everybody. So it'll be that same kind of approach that I take as a member of Congress to really figure out what it is that the country needs. We've seen too many years of political fighting and rancor, and we just need to get back to making sure that we shore up the democracy that I think we all want to uphold. But the right-wing Republicans have a stranglehold on their party right now. And I think people fear that democracy is being undermined. And so making sure that is first and foremost, that families get out of COVID and this, because we have not fully recovered from COVID. And, I think we're seeing it in our hospital systems and a lot of the work that I've done in healthcare, really to understand how all of this works, but to make sure that families, again, have the healthcare that they need, are able to get back to the economy, to their work in a full way. So whether it's childcare or making sure that they have the supports to return to work, and making sure that they are able to, to fully recover, making sure that we, look at gas prices, look at grocery prices, and look at the pharmacy counter and how high prices are affecting families there. So those are the things that I really want to tackle. And I know it is not just here in Oregon that is feeling this, it's across the country. So I am eager to seek out those people who want to find common ground and work together to find solutions.
Can you give an example of how or of an issue in which you part ways with Democrats, ideally something on the national level?
Oh, that's a good question. So, one thing, and I don't know where Democrats are on this issue, but I know that, and I hear it all the time because I do have to raise money. I'm not a multimillionaire. I cannot self-fund my campaign. So, I have to raise money, and people are tired of money in politics. And so, and I don't know where the Democrats land on that, but, obviously here at the state level, it's been something I've worked on, campaign finance reform. We have unlimited giving. And so, and I don't really know, I feel like we try to take some steps to, to close dark money down, and then it, pops up somewhere else. We had McCain-Feingold as kind of our guiding principles and our guiding statutes right now. But yeah, and I don't know that it may serve the parties. It does not serve the voters. And again, my North Star is going to be what is more inclusive to bring more people to vote, more people to be included in civic participation, to make them want to participate. And so it's things like that. And I don't know where the party is exactly on that, because I just know state politics. And I know the Democratic Party of Oregon did not like the bill that I introduced and tried to push in the last session.
Thank you. Mike, can you name something, a significant issue in which you part ways with Republicans?
Yeah, well, climate control and climate. I mean, I believe climate change is real. Some people back in our party don't. I'm a strong advocate for a hybrid approach to a green energy solution and what we need to do today. I think what Biden did back in when he first got elected or into office there, he executed an executive order shutting down. It was all fully funded. The project was moving forward to Keystone Pipeline. Had he not done that, that probably would have been close to being done today and resolve a lot of our energy crisis, high prices of fuel and things like that. But that's but what we should have done is do a dual hybrid approach. I drive 2 hybrids around. And what I mean by that is we should be working on future long-term green energy solutions, better battery technology, the windmill, solar, the wave technology, and the connectivity issues. The connectivity issues between the grid and the solar panels that you see out on the gorge and things like that, they're taking 2 years to develop. I have friends that build all the windmills and all that so forth, and they into that part of their business, and they go and put these windmill farms up and things, but it takes years to the connectivity, the copper wires, the things, prices are going up. There's a lack of copper out there, real demand for certain products. So there are some real problems out there that we need to address. And I know Biden's done some things on that connectivity, but we need to be really stronger in energy solutions and the technology. I'd be different. My Republican Party. I'm a hiker. I like to canoe. I'm out in the water. I love hiking in the national forest. I'm a real outdoor enthusiast, and so I've been in the Northwest my entire life. And so I want to keep Oregon clean and green. So that's a priority of mine. When my opponent says on TV, I'm against all that, she's never even talked to me. She's never heard me explain it. So she puts these ads out and stories that I'm against green and climate control or climate change, and I disagree with her. But I do need to go back and address one thing. You asked a question that my opponent did not answer. And this is it's probably the most important issue that I'm going to be putting on TV and bringing up. She blatantly lied and broke Oregon statutes on election, the election. She put blatantly untrue. The Hood River District Attorney talked to him at length yesterday and the day before. They called her. You cannot put on TV that someone's charged of felony possession of drugs and have lines of crack cocaine. She set herself up for a major lawsuit if I want to pursue that. A major lawsuit. And right now I'm considering it. She has personally destroyed my character. Everywhere I go, Mike, did you do drugs? She's affected my kids. And I don't take this lightly. When I go into something like this, when someone defames me, I'm going to go after this to protect me. So I may be filed a lawsuit against her for defamation. So Andrea, just you may get something in the mail. And it's just that what you've done on TV, you need to remove your TV. We've asked all the news stations that are checking right now, all the fact checking. What you put on TV was a complete lie. I've never been charged. That's what you say. You have cocaine in there with a razor blade. You're saying that I was all that. I was never double the limit on my alcohol. I was 0.04 over. And the reason I stopped at that bar is because 2 people called me and said they were too drunk to drive. I said, I'll swing by, going right into the river. I picked them up and drove to the house. That's why I was there. I walked in, you can, so what you're saying is like, oh, the police report shows stuff.
All right, I really don't want to go anymore into
That's a
this.
big issue in this campaign with so lies.
I know it's actually,
$100
it's
on
a
TV.
partial issue. It's one small issue. There's a lot of others.
Yeah, but when-
I do want to talk about law
$100 on
enforcement.
TV is
I do
slandering.
want to talk about law enforcement. You have noted that you're going to be a big defender of law enforcement, that you really dislike to seeing what's happened across the country in terms of the movements or defund the police kind of rhetoric that we're seeing. What would you do to ensure that police are held accountable for misconduct?
I like the fact that there, I've asked a lot of police officers, good friends of mine, and have family in law enforcement forever. I mean, wearing those cameras is one thing for accountability. People can see what's happening and they can, it's recorded. I think that's a good thing. Police officers and unions didn't like that. I think that's a good thing. It lets people see real firsthand what's happening out there. There are a few bad apples when it comes to any industry, any job, doctors, police officers, firemen, anybody. So there's been a few bad people, like the guy in Minnesota. He's sitting in jail because he did something wrong. But there's people like my dad and 99% of the other police officers do a really good job. They're true public servants. They risk their life every day to keep you and all the safe. They do a great job. We need to support them. What I mean by that is fund them properly. They're risking their lives. I don't think their pay is equal to what they should be getting, especially now with all the what's going on. I think we need to increase their pay. We need to provide more training and support so they can do their job better and learn what's going on in some of these crises. They become crisis counselors on the street because of shutting down the hospitals and mental hospitals. You have more mental patients on the streets now, and dealing with them is important. So that kind of training is real important. When you walk into a situation where someone has a club or a stick and a swing at people, they may not be doing it on purpose. They just don't have the mental capacity. They didn't take their medicine, or there are issues out there. That kind of training is real important right now, because our police officers and law enforcement have become social crisis counselors out there. Whether you believe it or not, it happens every day. They get the calls, they're the frontline responders. And it's not just in the cities where maybe you got other calls you can do, but throughout the whole state here, they become social crisis counselors. We need to support them and help them. Those are the things I want to do to make our law enforcement feel that we're giving them all the resources to do their job better.
And you don't think that there needs to be any change on the accountability end. I mean, you've named one person who was convicted for police brutality. Do you think that there is that the current justice system sufficiently holds accountable officers who engage in misconduct?
There are all kinds of when any kind of a gun incident's involved, someone's got hurt, but you go through these reviews and you have the police board and other things that come in and review the case. And so those have always been going on. Those could probably expanded to double check, make sure all the procedures were done properly and nothing was done wrong. I like accountability. I'm sure the law enforcement don't like that, but I do. I think because what's going on today, we need accountability in everywhere. We do. So I'm all for that.
But you don't think that there needs to be any change, for instance, in terms of removing qualified immunity for police officers, or changing the standard in some way so that it is.
Well, you may bring up one example of like there's some bad apples out there. Say it's like even less than 1%, like a fourth of a percent. It's really like that low. And those get all the attention. For those other 99% police officers that may make a mistake, and then you got to put them in jail for an honest mistake, I want to make sure that doesn't happen. But the people that intentionally do things wrong out there, they should be held accountable.
Andrea, are there any things that you would want to do on the law enforcement side, do anything regarding law enforcement if elected to Congress?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And I too need to just set the record straight again, because I've been accused of not supporting the, law enforcement with adequate funding. And that is not true. My dad was a police officer for over 30 years. He was undercover for many of those years. And so I truly do know what it's like to worry if your loved one will, come home safely or come home at all. Being a kid, growing up with that, it's stressful on the entire family. So, so the record is, as Mr. Erickson put in his ad, that I defunded the police, and the actual bill that he cited, I voted to increase police funding by $34 million. So what I would like to see at the federal level is exactly what you're talking about. How do we hold our law enforcement accountable to have transparent, effective law enforcement, because all Oregonians deserve to feel safe. So what I would like to see is some models that we have here down in the Eugene area, the Cahoots program, where we can actually add some resources to work alongside law enforcement through social services and behavioral health services to really help both train and work alongside law enforcement to de-escalate situations, to really address the situation that is going on. Is it really a behavioral health and addiction situation or crisis that's going on? Or is there a real threat in terms of safety for law enforcement in the surrounding community? And so I don't think we've had enough training around that. I would like to see that done. I would like to see demilitarization of our law enforcement as well. I don't think we need to have Defense Department weapons grade being procured by law enforcement agencies around the country. I think that is, it causes more harm than it does good. So those are just some of the things that I would like to see, because I think, again, I know the Cahoots model has really been sought after by cities and jurisdictions around the country right now.
I'd like to just comment one other thing. On my police response here. I think people like SWAT, when you got a crisis, we got bank robbery, and my dad's coached many of those there. You got 5 guys with assault rifles. If you don't have the right weapons to respond to someone with an AR-15 or something like that, you're just had your handgun, you'll be killed as a policeman. You need to have the SWAT team have all the right resources to respond to whatever situation it is. So I disagree with her saying you shouldn't have those weapons. But first of all, I never said. I said she's supported, like she's on, out there, TV. She was interviewed there. She's out to say, I support all the initiatives of BLM. She's out there, which one of the top 3 or 4 was defund the police. She's out there saying, I support all the initiatives of, and so when I said Salinas, she wants to defund the police, she's out there herself, and it's everywhere. She's pictures of her. I support all the Black Lives Movement, the BLM, and all their goals. Goal number 3 is defund the police. She should have said, I agree with most of their goals, except defund the police. But she didn't say that. And there's a lot of other bills she's voted for that were anti-police in the last 2 sessions. And I've got
so like what, for instance? What do you regard as anti-police?
Yeah, for instance, Senate Bill 1510 in 2022, this year, voted to forbid police from making traffic stops for vehicle infractions, endangering people on the road. So if you're driving down the road and your headlights are out, right, you can't pull that person over. You go through an intersection and the car may just not see you coming in the middle of the night.
But you see that as being anti-police. I mean, certainly there are many people.
The police can't do the job and pull you over. 2, backed a bill that would prevent police from making arrests for theft and trespassing. Voted to prevent police from arresting you for interfering with an officer. So if my dad's arresting somebody, and the wife or a brother goes up and starts shoving and pushing that police officer when he's trying to handcuff the guy who just did something bad, you can't arrest that person for interfering. She voted for that. There's a whole bunch of bills. You asked for examples. Those are all documented. That bill number is House Bill 2366, Senate Bill 571. She voted for that, or excuse me, that's the next one. 3164. She's also voted to allow murderers to vote, which I just think is crazy. So those things have just really demoralized 3 of them I just talked about. There's more. I just gave you some examples. So she's voted against police every time it's come up.
Okay, and Andrea, I want to give you a chance to respond very quickly.
She did say defund the police in all those movements. So you can't say she doesn't do that. That's what I'm putting on TV, and I'm very factual.
So yeah, just really quickly, the bills that we pass really help clarify the law, because I think, our law enforcement are in this place, it feels really ambiguous right now. So we try to clarify the law so police know their rights when making lawful arrests. I sponsored legislation to reduce recidivism and break the cycle of crime, especially for young offenders. And, and in terms of the traffic stops, I think we all want police officers who we know are overworked and understaffed right now to focus their energy on stopping violent crime. And so that was, kind of really the intent of all three of these.
At the same time, you have a situation where there are cars without license plates. It might seem like a minor infraction, but you're also finding that there's a large number of where you've got a record number of traffic crashes, like in Portland, fatal traffic crashes. And there are certainly a number of instances in which you're lacking that key piece of information of what the license plate is. So why, is there the possibility that that's gone too far, that perhaps some traffic enforcement needs to be, there needs to be additional traffic enforcement for safety?
Yeah, so the bill that we passed tried to give law enforcement enough discretion to know when something is unsafe, and that is actually what the bill clarifies, is to but it is hard also to kind of find that line. So it may have gone too far, but it may it may be the right balance. I don't think we have enough data yet to see actually where this is going.
Okay. Mike, you had mentioned something about the need for police to be able to have the same kind of weaponry that criminals have. That kind of leads to actually another question we have about gun safety legislation. Do you think that Congress needs to take any additional action to help fight gun violence?
Well, we have a lot of laws on the books. In state laws are separate from federal laws, but I mean, so the states, again, I'm in a states' right activist. I think what happens in New York is different than what Oregon, Montana, Idaho. So you have a lot more people out here that are hunters and so forth. And we just need to do a better job enforcing the many gun laws and background checks that we do have in place today. There can be probably more, especially around the AR-15s and things like that. That you got some young people that you can't buy alcohol at age 18, 19, 20. Some people think, why should you be able to buy an AR-15 at that there? I know the Second Amendment, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe in that. It's like the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and the other ones. But if you have a history of posting dangerous threats on TV, on your website or your Facebook and things like that, or you have health issues or the mental issues or those people there should not have guns. I'm telling you, that's some of the biggest problems. People that they post these things online, they have some mental illness, and they just shouldn't have guns. We need to do a better job at keeping those people from getting guns, and the people that are law-abiding citizens and law-abiding gun owners, they should not have any extra penalties. Honestly, there are a lot of good law-abiding gun owners that obey the law, they follow the rules, and so why put extra penalties on them? But we need to do better background checks on those people buying those mass assault weapons, and make sure that the people that are getting those are really responsible citizens.
Would you support federal action to raise the age of purchasing an AR-15 or other similar rifle from 18 to 21?
I'm actually reviewing that right now. I haven't made policy on that, so I usually give you an answer right now, but it's an important decision, and I don't want to come out and just arbitrarily tell you. I want to hear a little more facts and do my research. So I'll get you an answer on that, hopefully the next couple of weeks here. That's an important issue facing, especially with ballot measure 114 coming up and some other ones.
Okay, thank you. Andrea, do you think that that Congress needs to take additional action on gun safety?
Yeah, I do, because in 2020, for the first time ever, I think the public sees the mass shootings as the big incidents for gun safety. And in 2020, for the first time ever, guns were the #1 cause of death for children. And that means, and in America, that means, more than car accidents, more than cancer, more than all other like children injuries and illnesses. And as a mom, that worries me. And, and I just find that unacceptable. And here in Oregon, I helped to pass legislation that will protect children. And it was with the support of Oregon pediatricians that I would like to see at the federal level. So we have some safe storage laws that I think will help to save lives, and certainly children's lives. across the state. And I think it would make a huge difference nationwide. And then obviously I would like to see other common sense safety legislation that we have passed, or that, like universal background checks and red flag laws. And, I think that these types of laws are the things that will just help to keep families, and again, going back to families and our children, that will help to keep them safe. And we can do this nationwide, but we just can't sit idly by and watch this happen as our children are continued to be harmed and or killed by firearms.
I just want to add one last thing, Helen. Just that I really think that criminals somehow always find guns, no matter what you do. Law enforcement, the DAs, they always find guns in the black market. They break in and steal guns, so they're always going to find guns, no matter what you do. Background check. The bad guys seem to always get guns, which is wrong. I wish there was a way we could fix that, but they're always going to do something to steal. Bad guys are buy them on the black market. We just need to be tougher on our DAs and our judges. If you commit a crime with a gun, we need to hold them accountable and hold them fully, whatever the law says. Send a real message out there to the people that are committing those crimes with a gun. You rob a bank, rob a store, hit someone or threaten them with a gun, you're going to serve the full max time. I think we need to be more strong on enforcing the jail time and what's involved with anybody using a gun for a crime. That will make a little signal. Hey, you're going to be carrying a gun into a store to rob something, you're going to serve the max time. That's not helping it. DAs are letting them off early. That needs to change. We need to hold our judges and DAs more accountable.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see, I think we start with Andrea this time. If elected to Congress, what changes would you seek to make on immigration policy?
Yeah, so, immigration policy is something that, I have some experience with here. I helped to pass a bill to provide overtime pay for our farm workers. And the things that I kept hearing from growers across the state was that we don't have enough labor. And that is, it's a hardship. It's a hardship, not just, in our farms and agriculture, but in our, restaurants, a lot of publics, or a lot of service sector economy, certainly construction work. So what I would say is I would like to see, again, it's all about balance. How do we make sure that the 11+ million workers who work here, who have families here, kids go to school here, how do we make sure that they are able to continue to work and be the part of our communities, part of the thriving economy that we have? And then how do we set up a system to allow people into our country that can help us provide jobs or provide work for our needed sectors. So I think it's about making sure that we have balanced immigration reform as we move forward, because we know that our economy relies on immigration work right now. Again, we have families and kids who are going to school here who, and they're split households too, right? Some who are American citizens and their parents are non-citizens. And so we certainly need to keep families together. We need to be able to make sure that folks are getting what they need. And they're contributing to an economy where they just don't get any services and resources back either. And so, I would like to see that addressed in Congress, because I think we do need to do it nationwide. It's hard when we do it piecemeal. And I would love to continue to make sure that all workers across the US are paid for overtime as well.
And Mike, same question for you. What changes, if any, in immigration policy would you seek?
Well, first of all, I think the last thing she said is causing more harm to the farmers and putting farmers out of business. She pushed single-handedly and led the initiative, pushed the farm worker overtime bill in Oregon. And in her statement in the Oregonian, or the Channel 8 of Oregonian, stated that, I'm really here for the migrant workers. It's time they get someone representing them. No one's represented them since 1938, or it was. And let the farmers figure out the new higher cost structures. Like she really didn't care about the farmers. Our district, the 6th district, is a lot of rural. The wine country, Yamhill, Polk County, Marion County. It is a lot. I met with people over at Bountiful Farms, Todd, the owner, and some of the other farmers recently, toured their farm and asked them what the biggest issue was, and it's labor. And it comes back to my immigration thing in a second here. But what she just said, I asked, what is the biggest cost driver for you? Labor costs. I used to have all these families who come here up here 8 months, work. They like working 68. I paid them a lot of money, like $25 an hour, way more than minimum wage. They loved working. Now I'm required to pay them overtime. I now can't afford that. So now I can only work them 40 hours. They're going to go to another farm. They were coming out dedicated to me working, and these workers are upset. The farmers are upset. The cost of food is going to be going up. Cost of nursery stocks going up. They're saying these higher costs are going to be going up because there's not enough labor. So they're going to be forced to pay the overtime. But the farmers really worked hard. When this bill passed, Andrea and her group, she was the lead initiative petitioner on this bill, didn't even take the Farm Bureau AgPac's endorsement into consider, or their opinions in it. I've talked to them, a lot of people. I mean, we get endorsed by the Farm Bureau, the Ag Bureau, the nursery, the dairy farmers. I've been endorsed by almost every agriculture industry out there. She has, and they're upset with her about that right there. But circling back to immigration reform, we really need real immigration reform to tackle that problem, so we don't have to worry about what that farmer told me, which is the higher cost structures and labor problems. Right now, you have a W-2A and a W-2B, and I'm not sure if any of you have ever done this. I've gone through the process. I wanted to go through and bring some people up here to work for me, and you got to go through the immigration. There's a temporary visa requires an employer to file a petition with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Offices. Once you get that acceptance, then you can go back and fill the form. And so that's a little bit of a process. I'm not sure if anybody's done that, but making the process of getting a work visa is very difficult. And most people don't do that. So what you're doing is you're seeing right now a flooding of people coming to this country here claiming asylum. And they come in, they get bused someplace, they get bused wherever they want. I mean, you just see on TV every day, they're coming across the border and they're getting asylum. They're saying, here's your court date. It's now backed up 7-8 years, I'm hearing, to get a court date just to go back. Do you think that they get them released in the US here? That is a real problem. And they just come over here, they go to the camps on the border. They tell them, you guys need to go through and declare asylum when you get there. So then they'll give us an easy way to get in the United States. What we need to do, and really what we're hearing, this labor problem needs to be addressed. I really believe in real immigration reform. And what I'd like to do as an employer is, and I've talked to a lot of people about this here, is go back and change that, make the work visa process much easier and much less time consuming. And right now it's about $160, something like that. They allow 140,000 work visa permits a year under the W-2A. That needs to be expanded to like 1 million or 2 million right now to fulfill all the needs of all the farmers, the restaurants, the workers, the people that are running the healthcare, like the assisted living. They need help as well. We got to get more workers up here. So why don't we expand the work visa programs, the W-2A, the W-2B, make it simpler, easier, and expand it from 140,000 to 1 or 2 million. We can change that as needed when we feel there's enough workforce in our out here fulfilled. But at the same time, we just got to stop the asylum part of it. You come in here, people come in, they're not going to go back to their court date 6 years from now. That's a real problem. It needs to be addressed in Congress. That's one of the things I want to tackle right away, bring real problem-solving mindset to it from a business perspective. That's what I want to do. We need to do something to secure our border. We just can't do what we're doing. Just let people come in here with all the fentanyl and the drugs and all the human trafficking going on. It's terrible. And we need to do something. It's one of my top priorities is to try to get immigration under control. And that means real reform, things I talked about and looking at.
Great, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to working across party lines in that because, like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm a common sense business guy who wants to approach things differently. My family's got a lot of D's and R's and we work together. My employees here, half are Democrats, Republicans. We get along great. We solve problems. We work together. Let's bring that mindset to Washington, D.C. And if we do that, we really will solve this country's problems first and foremost. And that's the mindset I'm going to bring back to Congress. Is let's solve that immigration problem, inflation, and some of our crime problems that we're seeing in this country first.
Great.
But
Thank
politics.
Helen, may I respond to my
Sure.
opponents? Okay, yeah, because there's an accusation that's continuing to be made that I don't care about farmers. We brought growers to the table. We brought dairy to the table. We brought the wine industry to the table. And the wine industry was very helpful in helping us get this bill passed. And they see the same costs that all the other growers see as well, which is why we included 5 years of transition outlays for them to help pay for their workers. So in the first year, it's 100% of the additional labor costs. So, and I have never stated that I do not care about farmers. That statement has never been made. I don't think you'll find it on the record. I care deeply about that. Excuse me.
Sorry, Andrew.
So I just wanted to clarify the record, because I don't think you will find that on the record. Like I said, I've been working with them, which is why we did this 5-year phase in and have, a very robust appropriation to help them transition to that overtime pay.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to move on because we have time for just one last really quick question. And basically, Mike, you had talked about your support for climate change policies. Did you support? Would you have supported the Inflation Reduction Act and I'm sorry.
No, that's a quick answer, but sorry, finish it. Sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I guess what part of the act did you not like, and in terms of the climate reduction or the climate change emissions reduction aspects of that, how would why are those not something that you would support?
I think it was a hastily put together bill politically. They pushed that through. I mean, first of all, the title of it is not even true. The moment that gets signed, stock markets crashed, inflation started going up more. The consumer price index went up for the last 4 or 5 months since it's done nothing but actually hurt it. So for Biden to say this is going to lower on TV, maybe in 5 years or 6 years, when the new 87,000 IRS agents start auditing people's tax returns, you're creating an agency out there under this bill, which I don't like. 87,000 new IRS agents. That's going to be a larger agency than Homeland Security. I think those resources should have been reapplied to Homeland Security, the southern border, to maybe immigration so we could process work visas faster. That's where those dollars should have gone to. But to go back and just say, hey, there's a part of it that's climate, which is good, but 2/3 to 90% or 80% of it is not good. So they throw all these things together in Congress as one big lump sum bill, and I don't like that. I think they
So do you support the climate change aspects of it?
I don't know enough about it, but if it's the things I talked about earlier and those are in there, I'm all for that. I didn't read all the details on it to give you that full answer, to be honest. It's a pretty big bill.
Thank you. Andrea, what's your stance on the Inflation Reduction Act and specifically the climate change aspects of it?
Yes, I would have voted for the Inflation Reduction Act for many reasons. But really because it made the largest investment in clean renewable energy and is putting us on the path to energy independence like we never have seen before. This is something that Senator Wyden has been working on for over 10 years. It will directly impact companies and businesses right here in Oregon. So the, wind, solar, geothermal, which not many states have access to geothermal production. And we just really, I don't think have taken advantage of it the way we need to. And I also don't think people have put the resources and tax credits and that sort of thing into making sure we have a burgeoning economy around geothermal and then offshore wind. So I am really excited because I think, the US, it will help in, 2 different ways. It'll help not only, well, actually 3, energy independence. So not being reliant on some of those dictatorships around the world for our energy and geopolitical factors. It will help the environment. We will, we need to reduce our carbon footprint, not here in, just Oregon, but across the United States, across the globe. And then it will set us on a path where we can take advantage and really bring tens of thousands of jobs here to Oregon, make sure that we are doing our part to start to really take advantage of a new economy. So, it helps us financially, it helps us with workers, it helps with climate change and making sure that, so I don't know how you could say that you're for climate change, but you would not have voted for this bill. And then finally, it really would help reduce consumers' utility bills. It will help reduce the cost of prescription drugs for our seniors to be able to negotiate Medicare drug prices. It will help to actually, for people who are on life-saving insulin, it will help them to be able to afford that insulin. And then finally, it will help expand access to healthcare for people who don't have it right now.
Okay, thank you.
What I said is I didn't like the fact that all these things are bundled in one big bill, from IRS agents to climate to everything. It's just one big bill pushed through. I think it was more political than not. I agree with you, Andrea, that all those things are good and we want to do that 100%. Like I said earlier, I just like to see them broken out and defined versus trying to throw the IRS agents in the same bill and other things. Without those dollars for IRS agents could have gone to immigration services when they badly need it, or to process the work visas and things. We could have done something better with those dollars. So that needs to be addressed.
Great. Thank you very much. We're out of time, but I really appreciate the spirited discussion we had. I
Well,
think
we had our first debate yesterday in Salem Chamber of Commerce, and it was a fun debate yesterday.
excellent. Great. If we have any follow-up questions, I will email you separately. But thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea, for being here too.
Thank you.